WNN Pompano Beach, and 95.3 FM, W237BD Boca Raton, the Health and Wealth Radio Network.
The Army National Guard is committed to keeping the country safe and our communities secure. Composed of hundreds of thousands of citizen soldiers from all walks of life, the Guard is always ready to respond to local or national emergencies. We protect the homeland. We're always there when called upon, and in every state and territory, we stand guard for our communities. To learn more, log on to NationalGuard.com. Sponsored by the Florida Army National Guard. Aired by the Florida Association of Broadcasters and this station.
If you're not happy with your investments, if you've ever tried the stock market and haven't done well, hop in the car and get to Online Trading Academy. Online Trading Academy's pro investors show you how they find the right investments. Learn current Wall Street skills about stocks, options, futures, forex, even Bitcoin. See how market timing works and how money is made in up, down, and sideways markets by using their patented rules-based strategy. It helps find the right investment and limit the risk. The instructors at Online Trading Academy are certified, currently trade, and are profitable. They show you how they invest every day. Call now for a pair of tickets to a free half-day class at Online Trading Academy. Classes are all over Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, Jupiter, and Port St. Lucie. Call Online Trading Academy now. Call 954-668-2510. 954-668-2510. 954-668-2510.
Go to your app store and download the WNN app on your Android or iPhone. And never miss a Talk 1470 minute.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teal. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teal, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info. I'm Marcia Teal, your host, and I'm so glad that you could join us. We are live from Boca Raton, Florida, and this show has been brought to you for the last 3 years. So we're very excited to have this particular show just for family caregivers and others who want to learn more about caregiving and specifically more about dementia, different kinds of dementia. There's so many, Alzheimer's, vascular dementia, so many different kinds. And that's the kind of information that you're going to hear right here on this program every single week. We have different topics. We have different guests. We have guests from all different fields who come on to lend their expertise to talk about things that caregivers need to know. We also have sometimes actual caregivers who come on and tell their story, because who better to learn from someone who has walked in your shoes. And so today we have another great show for you. Thank you for joining us, whether you're listening on South Florida local radio, AM, FM, or whether you're joining us live on your computer or smartphone at our website, caregiversolutions.info. I'm so glad that you're here. So let me ask you a couple questions. If you're a caregiver and it's getting really tough, and if it hasn't yet, unfortunately to say to you, it will probably get worse before it gets better. Caregiving is difficult. Caregiving is something that we don't know that we're going to have to do sometimes until it's thrown upon us. And how do you prepare for that? Sometimes we learn as caregivers and when we're in the trenches. So you have to be prepared. And preparation is the key to caregiving, to be prepared and knowledgeable about what's coming down the road so you can try to stay one step ahead. Sometimes it's impossible. Things change so fast. Things can change on a dime. But the more you learn and the more that you gather information and the more people that you have on your team, the better off you'll be. So one of the things that we always stress to caregivers is to be prepared. And how do you be prepared? You listen to shows like this. This is a great show for people who can't get to support groups to learn. Sometimes people can't drive to go to educational seminars. They can't leave their loved one. And sometimes people are in the very, very beginning stages, and they just kind of don't want to put themselves out there right now and let everybody know that what they're dealing with, and that's okay. No, everybody's different. You got to do it at your own pace. And there are no black and white answers. For the most part, when you're caregiving, there's a lot of gray areas because what works for one person may not work for another person. So this is what makes caregiving for people with dementia very difficult. But you want to be prepared and you want to look forward to when the time comes, if you cannot take care of that person in the home any longer. There are things you can do. Of course, you can get home health coming in, you get aides, private duty aides to come in and help you. You can send them to daycare centers for a few days a week or all week, during the day to give yourself a break, which caregivers need to give themselves breaks. That respite time is very much needed and very much deserved. So definitely take advantage of that. But sometimes, again, there's another step. And caregivers sometimes don't like to talk about it because this is where maybe if you're caring for a spouse with dementia, you've made promises to each other. I'll never put you in a nursing home. Does that sound familiar? We're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about what you may have to do without breaking your promise and why. And my guest today is an expert on helping families choose what to do, to choose the place, to choose the time, and to choose the way to help caregivers make that next step. And so I'm so happy to introduce to you, she's been on the show before. She's been last year, I believe she was here, and we had a great conversation. I asked her back again because this is a very good topic that I don't think we talk about enough. So my guest today is Sharon Adges. She is the owner of Right from the Heart. And she is here to talk to us about what she does and how she does it. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Marcia. It's so good to be back with you again.
It's so great to have you. Thank you for coming. I want everybody to know you're called a senior lifestyle consultant.
Correct.
Okay, so we're going to find out what a senior lifestyle consultant actually does, and then we're going to talk about what you do, how you do it, and just get real for the next hour and come up with some tips for caregivers on what they need to look for, things they ought to be doing to prepare, and more importantly, even telling some real stories about how people have been more successful finding the right place and why. So this is really good stuff, everybody, and Sharon's here, and we're going to be talking about this today. So first of all, I want to ask you, what is a senior lifestyle consultant?
A senior lifestyle consultant is somebody who has the expertise and background in knowing all of the senior living choices and communities in the given areas that they serve, who go to their homes, the homes of families, and it's not just about understanding what their needs and their preferences are, but I want to know what their lifestyle is.
So basically what you're doing in a nutshell, you're basically meeting with a family to help them make the right decision for their loved one of where they're going to be going when they leave home.
Right.
Being bottom line, that's what you do. And there's a lot to that.
There's a lot in that equation.
There's a lot to that. So that's what I want to talk about today because I don't think people know where to begin sometimes. It's so overwhelming. I mean, if you were to open up the phone book or go onto Google and look at assisted living communities, it's like there's so many. And how do you start? How do you know what's what, who's who? Is it a good one? Is it not a good one? And why? And where do you cross that line to say this is where we need to look and maybe we need to not look here? So there's a lot. So let's just get right into it. There are so many questions I have to ask you and so many things that we want to talk about. I hope we get it all in this time that we have. So let's just get right into it. I know you work with families, right? And you mentioned you help families in your local area, and I believe you cover Broward County and Palm Beach County here in South Florida. Okay. So when you're helping families, do they all live here in South Florida?
Well, typically what I find is probably in 50% of the cases, their family lives out of town. So they're out of state. Typically, I find the northeast section of the country, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, that tends to be the area where a lot of the parents or where their families live, and the parents retired in Florida. So they're living quite a distance. Some of them are local, and it makes things easier, but I'm prepared to work with families in either type of situation.
So the whole family lived up north. The parents retired, moved to sunny South Florida. Now they're having difficult managing their day-to-day affairs. Maybe there's the dementia setting in, and all of a sudden you get called. They find you, and you get called in to help the situation. So how does family dynamics, and people have heard family dynamics, because there are a lot of situations, and families are all different, and families sometimes have different agendas. Sometimes they have different thoughts about what should happen to mom or dad. They may want to have one go here, one go there. How does that all play into making a decision? What do you see with family dynamics, and how does that work?
Basically, during my initial assessment, which I do in the comfort of the family's home, so whether it's the actual person that may be moving to the community or if it's a family caregiver's home, but in either instance, a very big part of my evaluation is to understand the existing dynamics within a family. And what I mean by that is everybody in a family wants what's best for mom and dad.
Hopefully.
And hopefully, yes, but mostly that's the case. They want what's best for mom and dad, but that's what they share. But what they may be different on is what that means to each person individually. You know, there may be family. For instance, I run into situations where a family member may be in denial because this is during the earlier stages of a dementia. This is a time where accepting this is really a very trying and difficult thing to do. And their way of coping is they enter this period of denial where they're not truly accepting what's changing around them. Other family members cope differently. And my role in doing that is to be the objective listener and to validate. Now, you will quickly find often that many times, no matter how many siblings there are, there's always one person who is actually making the decision or helping mom and dad in this process.
Is that because that particular sibling has the power of attorney given to them by their parents to do that? Or is it more because of a pecking order? Or is it more because the siblings have all decided that that particular sibling has the personality to do it or the relationship to do it? Or is it a combination of all that?
I was going to say all of the above. It really is, because some people live further away and are not close to the situation. And on the phone, mom and dad sound okay. So their knowledge of what the day-to-day isn't as great as somebody who may be local. Or you have to look at the relationship not only between the siblings, but between the siblings and their parents. And knowing that, in the case of dementia, you've got the spouse to contend with and what they want, and making sure that their wishes are also honored, because children may make decisions in trying to make decisions in your best interest, but it may be very different from what the view the spouse has. So,
the well spouse.
The well spouse,
Yes.
exactly.
And that's because the family has, well, they care for the mom and the dad, of course, and if one of the parents have dementia, what I find is they worry about the other spouse, their other parent who is a well spouse. We call it a well spouse without the dementia, because they see the stress of caregiving.
Exactly.
And they don't want their well parent to end up in the hospital or sick because of the stress of taking care of the parent with the dementia. So the children have their agenda with what to do because they're concerned about both parents, where maybe the well spouse is a little bit in denial too about how the caregiving has affected them. So you do have this discord sometimes between the families, and I'm sure you see that all the time.
And my number one goal in working with families is to build consensus within the family unit. And whether we have a pre-existing dynamic that has been their dynamic for many, many years of how the family interacts together and who the decision makers are and who are more aggressive, maybe more passive. Some family members will say, I defer all of this to my brother, sister, daughter. But the important thing is to understand how it works, and in validating, even if somebody is not going to be directly involved, the way that I want to build consensus, because you can't move forward until everyone's on the same page.
Absolutely.
So what I do, my job is to listen for and understand the interaction between family members and their parent, their well parent, as well as the person that, the spouse that does need dementia care. So by validating everyone's input and sharing as the objective person in the crowd, it takes a lot of the emotional component out of it. So I'm honoring and validating everyone's input because I think it's a family situation where we all need to understand each other's views and beliefs and honor that within the family.
Right, because each person honestly believes their feelings and their thoughts are the right ones.
Right.
And you don't want to, like you said, you want to honor that, you want to respect that, but let's put all that together and see how we can come up with one answer, one decision that everybody's happy with.
Right.
That is a tall order.
It is a tall order, and some are easier than others, depending. But I think most importantly, if somebody is actually, let's say if somebody's moving into a community and they have an earlier dementia, and if they're still capable of weighing in on the decision, I want them to be part of the discussion. Obviously, if they're beyond the early stage, we have to turn to family caregivers. But I think what's really important too is the spouse, because when you work with a family where one has dementia and then you have the healthy spouse, they are impacted. Probably there is the greatest impact because they're living with that person 24/7. I really want to take care of not just the family. I know there are great places like Arden Courts and other memory care communities that will help the family member who has dementia. What I worry about most is the well-being and the lifestyle of their spouse.
The one who's
You're
left behind.
Treating both. You're absolutely treating both, and everybody's an individual. And knowing what mom or dad, and this is what you said in your introduction, which I think is so important, I want to go back to, and that's preparation.
Yeah.
Because you need to know ahead of time what mom or dad really wants.
And before there's a crisis, too.
Right. And most of us, you and I have been doing this for many, many years. And oftentimes someone reaches out to us because there is a crisis. But then I'm encouraging people to let your family know what your wishes are, to put it in writing, to know ahead of time, because what you think mom or dad may want may not be what they want.
Well, exactly. My son has a new house. He lives in Jacksonville. He has a lot of bedrooms. He's not married yet. And I said, gee, when I need to live with somebody, when I can't take care of myself, I think I'll come and live with you because you've got all this room, right? That would be great for me. And his answer was, Mom, I don't think so.
Yeah,
so you see what I'm
exactly.
saying? So what we think we would want to do may not work out on the other end. So
Right.
I just can't stress that enough, and thank you for reiterating that. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have more of this wonderful conversation with Sharon, so stay with us.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides.
Hi, I'm Michael Mole, owner of Senior Helpers of South Palm Beach. Senior Helpers is dedicated to providing quality care in your home with bathing, dressing.
Often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
Or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
We're back, and my guest today is Sharon Adjed. She is the owner of Right from the Heart. She is talking about what she does. She's a senior lifestyle consultant, and we're having a conversation about family dynamics, what to do with mom or dad or both when one is incapacitated, one needs more care, and the families don't agree. And yes, it does happen. So Sharon, this has been a great conversation so far, but I have a question for you.
Sure.
We talked about knowing the different lifestyles and what to choose and how to choose it, and getting the feelings and the thoughts from the family, because your job is to get them all on the same page, as you mentioned, so that everybody's happy with the ultimate decision. But have you ever come across a family member, maybe there's not any siblings, it could just be a son or a daughter, that might have had an ulterior motive that you've had to uncover? Because I actually had an example of that. And I want to talk about that just for a second. You know, it's really difficult. This is a hard subject to broach because it doesn't, I don't think, happen that often, but it is real and there is reality to it. And unfortunately, it does happen too often. But you touched on it just a little bit when you said you have to look at the history of the parent to the children. You want to understand what the relationship was, what that parent and that son or that daughter or the children, how they grew up, what they thought of their parents. Did they love their parents, or did they just tolerate them? Or, you know, were the parents kind? Were they nasty parents? You have to look at the history to find out what's going on in this family to make, you know, everybody happy and to see what you can do to make it cohesive. But I had a situation where a son was actually trying to choose a place for his mom who could not be by herself anymore, and he was basing it on price only. And I explained to him there are a lot of places, but price is not where you start when you're looking for a memory care community. That is not where you start. And he said, I'll never forget this. He said, well, that's where I'm starting and that's where I'm ending, because I don't want to spend I don't want to spend my mom's money. He said, because that's my inheritance. And I about flipped over in my chair, you know, when he said it, because he was really upfront about it. You know, he was in charge of choosing a place for his mom, and he's going to find probably not the best place, by choosing it on price because he wanted her to live there, and then when she went to heaven, hopefully, that he was going to get everything else, and he didn't want to spend his inheritance.
Right. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen that often, but it does happen, and it's real. And yes, we should talk about that. One of the things that I do during my discovery process and meeting with a family, if that's the first item brought up, it's a very realistic to question the cost of care. So I go into, what are your benefits? Do you have a pension? What's your Social Security? Do you have assets that also drive a revenue stream? I want to get a handle on what they can truly afford. And then we go over potential benefits like veterans benefits. A lot of people know about it, a lot of them don't, and they don't know how to go about determining whether they're entitled to it. Mm-hmm. But when I look at it, I get a sense of what their financial picture is. And if I see that the cost is, if the family can afford it, there are situations where this is all they can afford. Mm-hmm. But in the case of memory care, if somebody can afford it, I have to ask, why wouldn't you want to go to the very best?
Mm-hmm. Well, apparently the son who didn't want to spend
And a lot of times it's the actual parent saying, I promised my daughter that I would leave her my house. I promised my son that this would be my gift upon my passing. And I said to them, you worked hard your whole life. And now your husband or wife has dementia, and you saved, and you did the right thing. But right now, your health and your well-being and his care or her care and their well-being is at the top of the list. And that's where we need to focus. And that's hard because promises have been made or values, but we always return to, I want to give you the best option that you can afford. And you know what? Our generation hasn't done a great job, the baby boomers, in saving and spending as their parents did. Mm-hmm. That generation before that grew up in the Depression.
Oh, they saved every penny.
They saved everything. So I said, you save for the rainy day. Here's your rainy day.
Exactly. And obviously, with this son that I encountered, his mom did have the resources. She had a lot of money,
right.
And he just didn't want to spend it on her because he wanted it. He felt he was entitled to an inheritance, which was really sad. And but that's just something that's out there. And I just hope that that people will do the right thing and give their parents their due, because like you said, they work for it. This is what they saved for, and it's to take care of them. So that is just something that just want to bring out there because it's reality, right? So now let's talk a little bit more about your interview, as you say, with the family and things that you're asking them, because your job is then to choose options for them, right? And so in order to choose options for them, you need to know a little bit more about who they are and what they've done. So can you give me an example maybe of somebody that you had a successful placement with because of something you uncovered in that process?
Right. I'm very analytical by nature. So my goal is, I want to go to their home because there's things we need to discuss that are difficult to discuss. And there's questions I need to ask that are kind of delicate and hard to answer. But what I do, my goal is to find which community is going to best serve the needs of this particular family in this particular situation, and making it very personal. And the reason I use the word lifestyle in my title is I want to look at the lifestyle that they've had. I want to recreate what's important to the family, but what's important to the resident. So if I've uncovered that this resident has always enjoyed painting and the arts, let's say, I can go to a community, and I know which ones have an arts and crafts program, who may bring in a resident artist in the field who's going to sit one-on-one. And you know what? The focus is on rewarding them and making them feel successful at what they can do. So I need to know what their interests, because that's how you reach in. That's how you make the connection with the person who has dementia. So if I knew that this community had a great music and art, which I'm a very big fan of, especially in the case of dementia, a music therapy and arts program, I know, and especially if that's the residents' interest, that's the way to connect, and that's the way for them to feel good about what they can do, or even if they're further advanced, to be able to be part of, to the extent they're able to, and they can adapt activities for their cognitive level. That's one of the greatest parts about being in a memory care community. They have people who are in the early, middle, and later stages, and every activity that goes on every day can be modified for that level that they're at.
So what your essence, what you're doing when you say you want to recreate their lifestyle is basically give them things that they've always enjoyed and things that they can still enjoy doing, like you said, to the best of their ability, because it's familiar to them and they enjoy it. So why not keep that happiness going for them and making them feel good about it? I mean, that's
and it's the long-term memory. We know that through the stages of dementia, what is preserved the longest is our long-term memories. So if you're giving them a journey back into something they always loved to do, and you made that connection, it brings back memories. And it also includes the spouse with those kind of programs and activities. You want them to feel that they've made, that while their loved one is in a community setting, you want to see them smile. You want to see them engage. You want them to visit and know that they made the right decision. But most of all, you want them to be safe and happy. And if they walk in and they see, my husband is doing something that he's always done. I've gone to a community, a memory care, where one resident had loved basketball. And although cognitively they're not going to be able to play a game of basketball, physically they can shoot a hoop. And just to give them that one moment where they can go outside and do that,
it means the world.
It's the world, because they feel good about themselves.
And that's what it's all about.
And that's what it's all about.
Elevating their self-esteem, making them happy, because people with dementia live in the moment. And it's a lot of little moments, right? And if you can give them those moments, it just warms your heart and warms the family's heart. I love that.
And you know what? I like educating family members, too, in that just because they have to do it differently doesn't mean they're going to not get that reward and that satisfaction. Or sometimes they want to do things that, such as if they read the newspaper every morning and they're still picking it up to read, and the family says to me, you know what? I know that in a half hour or immediately following what they've read, that they are going to forget it. We can't discuss it. But you know what? During that time, they're doing something they've always done. It's their routine, and it makes them feel good. Whether they remember it or not is not important.
That's not the point.
They're engaged.
Right. They're engaged. And they're happy to do it because, again, you said their routine. You don't want to upset the apple cart, and keep the routine as similar as home as possibly you can. I love that. We're going to take another quick commercial break. When we come back, Sharon's going to discuss how to choose a memory care community and what you should look for. And that'll be really interesting. So we'll be right back.
The inability to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's, particularly among the family members who care for them. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts. Wandering is a common problem for people with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's also a problem for family members who care for them. Keeping them safe and secure means never letting your guard down. And even though deep down you know it's time, it hurts to have to ask for help. But it could hurt them even more if you didn't. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts. Being unable to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know. We understand. We can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
Care expert on caregiversolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our national sponsor, Arden Courts Memory Care Community. Arden Courts has 10 communities right here in Florida and about 50 scattered across the United States. Arden Courts provides wonderful care for people with dementia, but they also care about the family and the family caregiver. So this is an opportunity for you. If you are a family caregiver or know a family caregiver who does not have this particular book, it's called The 36-Hour Day, I highly recommend you getting it. And Arden Courts wants to give it to you free of charge. This is a book that's going to answer a lot of your questions. It has examples, information, definitions, explains the differences between different kinds of dementia, explains what you might encounter when you look ahead and to try to be prepared. So it's a great resource, and it's yours free. All you have to do is call the toll-free number at Arden Courts, which is 888-478-2410. Again, that's 888-478-2410. Let them know that you heard about this offer on the Caregiver Solutions Info Show, and they will get your information and mail a book right to you. So take advantage of it. This is a great thing to read, to have. You don't have to read it from front to back. You can pick and choose depending upon what you're going through at the time. So this is a great thing for you, and I again, can't stress enough, again, to be prepared and to get as much information and knowledge that you can. So my guest today is Sharon Adjett. She is the owner of Right from the Heart. She's a senior lifestyle consultant, and we're talking about all kinds of things related to how you get a family together to decide where mom or dad may have to go when home is no longer an option for lots of different reasons, which is another whole topic, which we may have to do in the future sometime.
Yes, we will.
But we're talking about how to choose, where to go, what makes a difference. And right now, Sharon, I'd like to discuss how you would recommend someone going about choosing a memory care community, because you know, there's so many out there. There are more and more coming out all the time. And whether somebody is here in South Florida or whether you're in another state, in another town, this information would be the same for anybody, no matter where you are, because it's vital to know what is important when you're choosing for a person with diminished capacity. So,
Right.
So let's start. You know, I mean, where do we start? And I think the first place to start is the actual place itself, the actual building.
Right. And before I recommend anyone to a community, I go to the community on my own and do my own evaluation. And one of the things that I'm looking for is the physical layout of the building. So I want to know, one of the greatest needs a person with dementia has is the freedom to make choices and the freedom to go in and out of a safe area. So is the design of the building, are there exit doors where they can freely go outside, enjoy nature, get fresh air, come inside, and not have that feeling that they're behind a secured door and they can't get out.
Or they're trapped.
That they're trapped, right. And it's really natural for us as human beings to want to be outside, to want to be out in the fresh air. Some people enjoy it more than others, but it's a very important part of a day-to-day routine. So I look for that opportunity to do that. And then, of course, being outdoors, you want to make sure that the staff is regularly monitoring the residents who are outside, because here in South Florida, it's easy to get dehydrated. It's easy to get a sunburn. You want to make sure, do they have the beverages? Do they have things? Have they made accommodations for the residents who enjoy that?
Have a protocol to
have
check
a
that.
protocol, just making sure that they're able to get what they need while they're outside, and making sure if somebody is outside to bring them back in so they're not outside too long, particularly in the summer months. So that's one of the things I look at. Then I look at cues in the environment. You know, what cues are set up in the community's environment to help the resident navigate. If they know.
So what do you mean by cues?
So it could be as simple as a color code of a building, a section. Or it could be the shadow box on their door and they see pictures of family members. I want them to know how to navigate their environment. Of course, the staff has to be out and present at all times. And I'm looking to see where the staff is. You know, sometimes people are engaged with one resident and helping them with care, but there's always has to be enough staff to monitor and making sure that the residents are safe and well cared for. And also to give the resident, the cueing is really to help the resident feel, again, more independent and having the freedom to know, oh, this is where I go for my room. I recognize this area.
So there are physical cues you're talking about in a building. We're not right now talking about a caregiver cueing somebody like it's time to eat or it's time to brush your teeth and this is how we do it. You're talking about physical cues, colors, signs, symbols, those kinds of things.
Meaningful cues to help them navigate their world and understand where they are. Also, too, I mean, it would be great. There are people who have dementia that are known as pacers, and they have a need to walk continuously sometimes. And they need an environment which gives them that freedom to walk. So I'm looking to see if I have somebody who does a lot of walking continuously, I want to make sure that environment allows them to do that.
Instead of maybe going back and forth a short hallway 100 times a day, because that's kind of, A, it's boring, and B, it's monotonous, and it's probably not the best thing for that person, because we had a pacer, as you called them, years ago. And this person never, I mean, I can tell you in the years that he was with us at Arden Courts, he didn't sit for anything. He slept at night because I guess he was so tired, but he would sleep at night. But he would have to eat on the run. In other words, we had to feed him while he was walking because he could not sit down long enough to have a meal. So it was just unbelievable unless you saw it, that he just walked and walked and walked, and that was just part of his disease. That was something that he just had to do. Like you say, it's the disease that makes people need certain things and do certain things, and we have to be able to accommodate all of these things. So, yeah, that's another important...
So, the cues that they get from their environment are very helpful. We want to promote as much independence and self-reliance as possible for every stage. So that's in a sum. And also, too, I'm looking at the way the community is designed. If there's an evacuation or if there's a power outage, how are they going to be able to get the residents out of the communities? Is there enough exit doors, and do they have a protocol and plan in place? If it's a building with multiple stories, how does that work? And
why would that make a difference, a building with multiple stories?
Well, I think it's a lot easier to have it all on one floor.
Why?
Because it's easier to make certain in the event that you do need to evacuate, or if there is a drill, that they're able to do so easily. And on the upper floor, it also involves taking people in and out of elevators. You have to be concerned about family members. Many times residents are young, and we're seeing more and more people who are diagnosed who are in maybe their early as in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. And to another family member, they may look like another family member. So getting on an elevator with them could be done. So I just think it works better for many reasons if we can get them on that floor.
Especially people that are in wheelchairs.
Right.
because they're going to definitely have to need assistance.
Someone's
to
going to
evacuate,
have to take them downstairs
or even
carry
get outside
them.
because a person up on a multiple floor level can't easily get outside without help. So you said it's important for people to get outside.
Right.
Yeah. So you want to look for these kinds of things because there are reasons for everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think another thing to look at is the size of the community. And, you know, with people who have dementia, it can become very overstimulating to have too many people around when they're in an activity or when they're in dining. So how does the community, if it's a larger program, how do they group the residents according to cognitive levels? How do they make sure, are there multiple areas of dining, or do they have multiple seatings where there's not too much stimulus in the environment, because they can be overstimulated? So we want it to be a calm environment where they can enjoy their meals, where they're eating with people who are at their cognitive level and who the staff is present to meet the residents' needs. Having a bunch of people grouped together with different needs and abilities is not a good thing. It really isn't. You want each person to be in a group where they feel, I call it psychologically safe. So if I know, and I'm in an earlier stage of dementia, and I know that I forget things or I repeat things, I want to be with other people who make me feel safe, because guess what? They forget too. But it's never a good idea to mix people who are at more advanced stages, because that could be upsetting to someone who's in an earlier stage.
Well, think about it too. You know, when we have a meal, when we're eating, it's a social event. We go out to eat, we're going out with our friends, we go to restaurants, we have people over to our house, we're sitting around a table, we're enjoying the conversation. It's something that people do their whole life. So I get what you're saying, is that you want people to feel comfortable that they're relating to others that feel like they're friends, that feel like this is someone who is like me, who's someone I can relate to.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons people do move to memory care communities is because sometimes, unfortunately, when one spouse has dementia, they're no longer invited to go out with their friends. Or the person with dementia is isolating and withdrawing because they realize they can't keep up with their friends, or they're not processing the conversation. And now it becomes something that makes them feel bad about themselves, and they're not included. So one of the reasons they go to a community is to have that ability to go in a social environment where they can feel good.
And have a good time.
And have a good time. It's all about quality of life.
There you go. It really is. And before we have to go to our last commercial break, when you take a family and you're touring with them, what are some of the things they should look for when they're on a tour?
Before we go on a tour, I educate the families by providing them with objective tools to look for. And once I know their specific situation, I arm them with questions to ask as it pertains to them. Because everything is about an individualized program of care. So I want to make sure it's the right match, but I want them to know what questions to ask her and what to look for. I want them to be very observant. Is their staff present? How is the staff engaging with the residents and other staff members? Are they engaging? Are they just walking by? Are they involved in a group activity? Are they giving them a hug? Are they doing things to make the residents feel wanted and needed and loved? Because compassion is a very big part of memory care. But I also want them to know, I tell them, ask about the longevity of the staff. What is their background and experience in working with people with dementia?
And that is so important. You know, I'm really glad you brought that up, because there was a mandate not too many years ago here in South Florida that every home health aide, every caregiver in facility, everybody had to be trained on Alzheimer's and dementia care, right?
Right.
Okay. But the difference between being trained to do dementia care and actually doing it are two different ball games.
That's right. And it takes a very special person to be a caregiver for somebody who has dementia. And that's what I want them to see, and that's what I want them to learn about. Because long after they meet with the marketing person, long after they're done with their search, who is the person that they're going to rely on every day to take care of their mom and dad? And I often equate it to when you bring your child to a child care center and you're going to look at the staff. Think about the things you look at. You want to see if all those people are going to care about your child as much as you do.
Yes.
So I want them to observe that. I want them to know what kind of training and what kind of background. I want them to ask those questions specifically. And I want them to know about not only the longevity of the staff, but also to know, is that person, a lot of the times the point person is the nurse. It's not going to be me, it's not going to be you, but once somebody's living there, the nurse is a point person for knowing, to understanding what there's changing behaviors, advancing dementia. Is that person approachable and personable? Can you have that conversation? Do you feel they're standoffish, or do you feel that they're open to hearing and validating your concerns? Because that's who you're going to be relating with. I want them to meet the activities director. I want them to know what his or her background and experience is in dementia. I want them to know that they treat each person as an individual. So those are the point people I direct them to talk to. And sometimes we'll set up a meeting just to go and meet with the key staff that are involved. And by that conversation, I want them to walk away feeling, you know what? I feel comfortable that they're going to give them the right care. I know that I can trust their decisions, and I know that I can call them at any time with my concerns.
That is awesome advice, Sharon. I couldn't have said it better, because you're right. When a family is not there and they're wondering about their parent, you want to have peace of mind. You want to feel like, I'm not there, but I know everything's okay, or else they call me. And you want to know that they're doing what you would do. Maybe not exactly how you would do it, but they're doing it, and they're making sure that mom or dad is safe, that they get what they need, and they're giving that compassion. And you're right about, you brought me back, my memory when I had to choose a day's care for my little boy when I was going to work and he was 3 years old. And I did look at those things. I looked at the staff. Were they happy to see him? Were they engaging with him? Were they smiling? Oh my gosh, smiling was the most important thing. I wanted to be sure that my son wasn't going to be afraid to, be with this person, because smile is, is a universal language, right? Everybody likes to see people who are smiling. So all of that is absolutely true. So thank you for sharing that. We're going to take our last break, and we come back, we'll have even more from Sharon, who's a wealth of information. We'll be right back.
Being unable to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. Somewhere at the corner of bewildered and confused is a lost mother, a father, a sibling, a grandparent. Wandering is a common symptom of Alzheimer's or related dementias, and can often make those who care for a loved one feel just as lost. If you're looking for a place that's safe and secure, look to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. Feelings of depression, isolation, and frustration are common among persons living with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's common among those who care for them, too. It takes a lot of patience and courage. It also takes knowing when you can no longer do it alone. At Arden Courts, memory care is all we do. Talk to us. We know, We understand. We can help. Don't let guilt keep you from making the right decision. Visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. The inability to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's, particularly among the family members who care for them. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts.
65-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
My guest today is Sharon Adjed, and she is the owner of Right from the Heart. She's a senior lifestyle consultant, and we've been talking for the last, almost 50 minutes about why it's important to find out where you're going to go ahead of time, how to make the decision. So, Sharon, before we have to leave today, I can't believe our time is almost up. Tell me why someone should use a person like you, and if they're not in this South Florida area where they can call you, how do they find somebody like you or somebody to help them? And lastly, give them your phone number so that they can call you if they're local here.
Well, the first suggestion as far as finding someone is basically to ask your friends and neighbors, ask your relatives, family members, or maybe somebody that has worked with someone in the past that was very knowledgeable and very compassionate and understood, and that would be a great recommendation. Also, calling a hospital or a rehab center and finding out the social workers and their knowledge of any senior placement specialist in the area, or they can call geriatric care managers, elder law attorneys, doctors, physicians,
somebody you trust
neurologists.
For a referral.
Yes, somebody you already know.
Okay.
That can give you that insight and information.
Good. And how about you? How can they contact you if they're here in South Florida and they would like to have a conversation personally with you?
Well, they can reach me either on my website, which is rightfromtheheartseniorplacement.com, or by calling me at 561-374-4696.
And can you give that number again?
Sure. It's 561-374-4696.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. I love speaking with you. If you are in a situation where you might need some help and you're here in the South Florida area, you can call Sharon or look for a lifestyle consultant yourself. She explained how to do that. If you're in one of the many cities across the United States that has an Arden Courts, I would recommend you first going to Arden Courts to learn more about dementia care and see what they have to offer and their awesome communities. I'm 18 years with Arden Courts, and I am such a big advocate for it, and we work with wonderful people just like Sharon. So thank you all for joining us. We had a great time talking. I hope you enjoyed it too. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget, give somebody a hug because they need it, and so do you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teal. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions. The opinions